All right, let's dive straight into this explainer and uncover how ancient texts, completely packed with bizarre otherworldly magic, actually laid the very foundation for one of the most structured and fascinating cultures on Earth. We're unpacking a world where divine spears, drunken serpents, and celestial sibling rivalries form the incredibly rich, sometimes confusing, but absolutely captivating DNA of Japanese mythology.
But before we really get going, we have to ask a fundamental question here. How does a culture globally famous for its hypermodern, cutting-edge technology, the bullet trains, the robotics, those neon-lit metropolises, still fiercely revere these ancient magical texts? I mean, these are stories that directly inspired today's hit manga and blockbuster video games. It's a stunning paradox, really. And the answers to how the ancient perfectly intertwines with the modern, well, they actually lie in a couple of very old books.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the spirit of Japan, look at the books of the gods, witness the creation of Japan, make an escape from the underworld, meet sun, storms, and chaos, and finally look at a living legacy.
Section 1. The Spirit of Japan. To truly understand these myths, we have to grasp the core concept of kami. These are deities or spirits, and since Shinto reveres the natural world as a literal feature of divine creation, you're going to find kami in absolutely every aspect of life and nature. We're talking the sun, the moon, the mountains, the rivers, the whole shebang. But here's the catch. Kami are not just these completely benign, friendly little spirits that exist to make our lives easy. Not at all. Shinto accepts that nature is dangerous and capricious. The very things that give us life can totally take it away, right? Humanity just has to take the bitter with the sweet. A kami force can be something as awe-inspiring as a blooming cherry blossom in spring, but it can just as easily be the terrifying, destructive power of an earthquake or a tsunami. They embody the full, completely unvarnished spectrum of the natural world.
And to ground these spirits in the real world, we have jinja. These serve as the physical anchors for ancient mythic events. They're those familiar pavilion-style temples you see all across Japan, and they actually mark specific geographical locations where deities are believed to have performed their sacred functions. People visit these shrines today, not just to pray, but to participate in festivals, seek blessings for major life milestones like a child's birth or starting a new business, and essentially maintain a continuous, active relationship with the local kami inhabiting that specific space.
Section 2. Books of the Gods. So let's talk about the Kojiki, or the Record of Ancient Matters. This was compiled way back in the 8th century, specifically between 711 and 712 CE. Now, Emperor Temu commissioned this massive undertaking because he basically recognized the incredible power of narrative. At the time, all these various powerful clans had their own private family myths, justifying their high status. Temu decided, okay, it's time to pull all those disparate competing myths into one unified, officially sanctioned record. By doing this, he was aiming to consolidate imperial power and establish a singular national identity. And even though it carries an amalgamation of Chinese and Indian influences, the Kojiki operates somewhat like a holy Bible for Japanese spiritual culture. It acts as the absolute, definitive bedrock for the Shinto religion. But the Kojiki definitely doesn't stand alone. We also have the Nihon Shoki, and these two texts serve wonderfully complementary purposes. While the Kojiki gives us the core creation myths and deeply explores the magical age of the gods, the Nihon Shoki steps in to provide a wealth of alternative versions of those stories. And more importantly, it exhaustively details the lengthy genealogies that trace the divine origins of the human emperors straight down through history. Together, these two texts are basically the heavyweights of Japanese mythology.
Section 3. The Creation of Japan.
Let's set the scene. Before anything else existed, the earth and sea were completely unformed. They drifted aimlessly in what is described as a heavy, Medusa-like oil floating in a dark void. Then came the two principal deities, the brother and sister gods Izanagi and Izanami. Standing together on the floating bridge of heaven, they plunged a heavenly jeweled spear straight down into that thick, briny oil. They churned it, and when they slowly pulled the spear back up, the heavy, shimmering droplets of brine dripped off the tip. As those drops hit the surface, they actually condensed and solidified to form the very first island, Onogoro. And from that single point of solid ground, they began to literally give birth to the islands of the Japanese archipelago and the countless natural forces of the world.
Section 4. Escape from the underworld.
Now, the cinematic pacing of what happens next is absolutely incredible. Creation is messy, right? And tragedy strikes when Izanami dies terribly while giving birth to the fire god. Her spirit descends to Yomi, the shadowy, polluted underworld. Izanagi is completely heartbroken and follows her into the darkness. But he breaks a strict taboo. He snaps a tooth from his hair comb to light a torch so he can see her in the shadows. And what he finds is horrifying. She's rotting, crawling with writhing maggots, and surrounded by 8 terrifying thunder gods. Horrified, he runs for his life. Izanami is enraged by his revulsion and sends evil hags to hunt him down. To escape, Izanagi wildly throws his headpiece, which magically turns into a bunch of grapes to distract the demons. Then he hurls his comb, which instantly sprouts into bamboo shoots. He even resorts to throwing 3 magical peaches at his attackers. He finally reaches the border of the living world, gasping for breath, and seals the entrance to the underworld forever with a giant, immovable boulder.
Through that massive boulder, they declare their ultimate divorce. Izanami, who is just furious at the deep shame Izanagi caused her, screams a terrible curse from the dark side of the rock. She vows that she will strangle and kill 1,000 people every single day. Izanagi, standing in the light, counters her with a powerful promise of his own. He vows to cause 1,500 children to be born every single day. And just like that, we are given this incredibly poignant, mythological explanation for the delicate, continuous balance between life and death in the human world.
Section 5. Sun, Storms, and Chaos. After his terrifying escape from the filth of the underworld, Izanagi bathes in a pristine river to spiritually purify himself. And as he washes his face in the water, he inadvertently gives birth to the absolute heaviest hitters in Japanese mythology, the 3 noble children. From washing his left eye comes Amaterasu, the radiant sun goddess. She's the ultimate supreme deity of the Shinto pantheon, tasked with ruling the heavens and providing light to the world. From washing his right eye comes Tsukuyomi, the calm moon god. And from washing his nose comes Susanoo, who is given dominion over the seas and storms. But Susanoo is a deeply rebellious, wildly destructive trickster figure. He's very much akin to Loki from Norse mythology. He's so hopelessly disruptive and brazen that the other gods eventually banish him from the heavens straight down to earth.
But banished to Earth, Susanoo actually manages to redeem himself in a spectacularly absurd and highly entertaining way. While wandering the land, he comes across an elderly couple weeping uncontrollably. Turns out, their final beloved daughter is about to be sacrificed to Yamanato no Orochi. This is a foul, massive, 8-headed serpent whose giant body literally spans across 8 valleys and is covered in moss and giant trees. Susanoo confidently steps up. He instructs the desperate couple to build an enclosure with 8 gates and to place a massive vat of highly brewed, incredibly strong sake inside each one. The terrifying serpent arrives, greedily dips its 8 massive heads into the vats, gets completely blackout drunk, and just passes out cold. Susanoo draws his blade and hacks the monster to pieces, saving the maiden. And deep inside the serpent's severed tail, he discovers the great sword of Kusanagi. He gifts this magnificent blade back to his sister Amaterasu, and it eventually becomes one of the 3 secret imperial treasures of Japan, a true artifact of ultimate divine legitimacy.
Now, the myths actually get even stranger from here. According to the Nihon Shoki, the origins of human agriculture are wonderfully bizarre and, well, slightly grotesque. The moon god, Tsukuyomi, attends a feast hosted by the food goddess, Ukomochi. But he slays her in a fit of absolute disgust. Why? Because she produced this exquisite feast by spitting the food directly out of her mouth. But from her lifeless, slain body literally sprouted the essential staples of human survival. Cows and horses emerged from her head, silkworms crawled from her eyebrows, rice grains burst from her stomach, and wheat and beans grew from her genitals. Amaterasu, the sun goddess, takes these divine gifts, plants them carefully in the earthly fields and rice paddies, and even places the silkworms in her own mouth to reel the delicate thread, thereby inventing the art of sericulture for humanity.
Section 6. A living legacy.
The thing you have to realize is that these are definitely not dead texts, just gathering dust in a museum somewhere. Some of these figures persist vividly in the imagination of the Japanese people to this day, and they've found vibrant new life in manga and video games. The heroes, the deeply flawed villains, and the dangerous yokai spirits that sit just adjacent to our visible world, they are so deeply ingrained in modern culture. When you're consuming today's pop culture entertainment, you're often interacting with the direct creative descendants of characters like the rebellious Susanoo and the radiant Amaterasu. The very virtues, flaws, and aesthetics they embody are still being admired and replicated on screens worldwide right now.
Furthermore, these texts served a highly functional real-world purpose. The exhaustive, deeply patriarchal genealogies recorded in the Nihon Shoki and Kojiki weren't just simple fairy tales meant to entertain people around a fire. They were the absolute political and spiritual bedrock that legitimized the historical emperors of Japan. By literally tracing their bloodlines directly back to the supreme sun goddess herself, the imperial family established an undeniable divine right to rule. And this effectively suppressed any rival clans who couldn't boast such a stellar celestial pedigree. These ancient books firmly established the foundational Shinto practices of ancestor worship and reverence for the male lineage, practices that continue to echo profoundly in Japan's cultural and political framework today.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. If an entire hyper-modern nation's spiritual identity, political lineage, and even its global pop culture exports are still profoundly shaped by 8th century stories of thunder gods, jeweled spears, and drunken moss-covered serpents, well, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What ancient, invisible stories are secretly shaping your worldview today? Think about the cultural lineages, the foundational myths, and the unwritten rules of belief you inherited without even realizing it. Thanks for exploring this incredibly fascinating topic with me, and keep questioning the myths around you.